Today, this is the first Rashi on the Torah. In the night class, we studied this more in depth. We analyzed this, we'll say quickly. The first Rashi, right at the beginning of Breshit, chapter 1, verse 1, Rashi says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, it was not necessary to begin the Torah, Ela me'achodesh hazeh lachem. The Torah should have began with the verse 12, chapter 12 in Exodus, in Shemot. Why? Because that's the first commandment. The Torah is the guidance, the direction of man, how to link up and line our lives according to the infinite, to the divine, the absolute good, to that which is eternal, to link up the finite to the eternal. So the Torah is hora'ah, the Shon the rabbis say, hora'ah, guidance. So therefore, it should have begun, Rav Yitzchak says, with the first commandment. Start off, it's the book of commandments, give me the commandments. What's all these stories in Breshit? Till you get to chapter 12 in Shemot, it's not so much commandments. He said it should have begun with Mechodesh hazeh lachem. This is the month, the first month to you, like the commandment to the nation to calculate the months and the leap years. That's the first commandment that Israel was commanded. Umatam patach beBreshit. Why did it start with Genesis? This whole book of stories and history and prehistory. So again, at the night class we elaborated more. Rav Kook, Rav Tziyuda analyzed this and talked about there's two things we can learn just from the question itself, from what's called the Havamina, the premise of the question. What is it based on? Rav Yitzchak said the Torah should have started with the first commandment to the nation. The first commandment, we said why? We learn from that the Torah is, like I said, this guidance. But not just guidance of the individual. It should have started with the first commandment to the nation. The first collective, there are mitzvot before that in Breshit. Gidan Hashem, Brit Milah, to Avram. But here, and so too says the commentary on the Chumash, there's Dat Zkenim Ubalei Tosfot. One of the Rishonim, the classic commentators, the Mikor Gdoli also says that we see here, from his question, that the first commandment that was commanded to the nation, how the nation runs its life, that is the receptacle for God's will and goal to be revealed in this world through this nation. So start the Torah with that. Don't give me all these introductions, whatever. Get to the point. Start with the first commandment of the nation. So those are the two things we can learn from the question, right? Why didn't the Torah start with chapter 12 in Exodus? One, you see from that the very question that the Torah is guidance, and not just individual, but also collective national guidance. And what's the answer he gives? Mishum koch ma'asav yigid lamo. The verse in Tehillim 111, because the power of his works, of God's works, he has declared to his people in giving them the heritage of the nations. God gave the Jewish people the land of Israel. And this is the beginning. Rashi already apparently foresaw this remote possibility that the nations should say to Israel in the future, you are robbers, listimatem, shekvashtem artzot shivat gavim. You are robbers that you have captured, conquered, stolen the lands of the nations, the 7 nations. Now what the nations will say in the future, Rashi says, based on this chazal that he's bringing down, that they'll say that we're thieves, we're conquerors. It's not our land. Can you imagine? Again, such a remote possibility that could ever happen. And that's the first Rashi, the beginning of the Torah. Already Rashi tells you that the whole book of Breshit, Chazal are telling us, to tell you the history of the creation of the world as it goes on. The nations will say that you have seized it by force, and then Israel can answer them therefore and saying that God created the world. It all belongs to God. He created it and gave it to whom? It was right in his eyes. It was his will to give it to them temporarily, and from them he gave it to us. So that's the first Rashi in the Torah, that the book of Breshit, therefore the answer is that it's not enough to start with the first commandment or the first collective commandment. First we have to know about the uniqueness of the land of Israel before you get to the commandments. Eretz Yisrael is the basis, is the foundation for all the commandments. As Chazal tell us, right, in the Sifri, שמצוות יישוב ארץ ישראל שקולה כנגד כל המצוות שבתורה. The settlement in Eretz Yisrael, dwelling here, is the foundation of all the Torah, all the commandments in the Torah. And that we spoke about also. So here we see that the book of Breshit, the whole proceeding of the book of Breshit, before we get to the commandments, is all the foundation of our connection, of our link to the land of Israel.